Shame is not an emotion. It is a public execution carried out without a blade. When someone tries to shame you in front of others, they are not criticizing your behavior. They are attempting to erase your identity in real time. They want to shrink you, reduce you, and reassign your position in the invisible hierarchy of the room. You felt it before. That sudden heat crawling up your neck, the tightness in your chest, the moment when laughter pauses and all eyes turn toward you, waiting to see what you will do next. In that moment, your instincts betray you. Your body believes you are under threat of exile, and for most of human history, exile meant death. So, your nervous system lights up like a battlefield. Your heart races. Your mind scrambles for words. You feel the urge to explain, to defend, to correct the story, to apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. That urge feels natural. It feels necessary. It feels human. And it is exactly what destroys you. Because the moment you react, you've already lost. The moment you try to prove you are not what they say you are, you accept their frame. You step onto their stage. You let them decide what the conversation is about. From that second on, you are no longer in control of the narrative. You are dancing to music you didn't choose. Most people never realize this. They think shame comes from being accused of something false. It doesn't. Shame comes from agreeing to play defense. Defense is submission dressed up as dignity. Now here's the question that changes everything. What if shame isn't something you have to escape? What if it's something you can reverse? What if the very moment designed to make you smaller could be used to expose the person attacking you instead? This is where most advice collapses. You're told to stand up for yourself, to clap back, to explain your side, to be confident. All of that advice assumes the same false premise. That power comes from reaction. It doesn't. Power comes from position. And there is a position so cold, so counterintuitive, that when you occupy it, the attack collapses under its own weight. Not with noise, not with aggression, but with something far more unsettling. Indifference. Most people think the opposite of shame is pride. They're wrong. Pride still needs an audience. Pride still reacts. Pride still bleeds when poked. The true opposite of shame is indifference. Not fake indifference, not emotional suppression, but the kind of indifference that signals one terrifying thing to the room. This did not even register as important. But here's the cost. You don't reach that level of indifference by learning clever lines. You reach it by killing something inside yourself, the part that craves validation. In the next phase of this journey, we're not polishing your social skills. We're performing surgery on your instincts. We're dismantling the reflex that makes you flinch when challenged. Because as long as your nervous system controls your behavior, anyone can control your status. Before you can dominate socially, you need to understand what's happening biologically. When someone shames you, why would you wear that? Did you really just say that? Everyone knows you're lying. Your amygdala hijacks your mind. It reads the situation as existential danger, not metaphorical danger, real danger, the kind that once meant being cast out of the tribe. And in modern social environments, the rules are brutal but simple. The person who reacts is the person who loses. The attacker knows this. They are counting on your biology. They want the stutter, the anger, the nervous laugh, the rushed explanation. They are not attacking to express truth. They are attacking to direct a performance. And if you follow your instincts, you play the role perfectly. The Machiavellian mind does not eliminate instinct. It overrides it. The first shift, the one that changes everything, is realizing this. The attack has nothing to do with you. Nothing. Shame is projection. People shame when they feel threatened, inferior, bored, or empty. A secure person has no need to reduce others. Only someone protecting a fragile position does that. When someone tries to shame you, they are confessing something without realizing it. They are telling the room they see you as a threat, or as fuel, or as a mirror they hate looking into. Once you understand this, something strange happens. The heat in your neck fades. The urgency dissolves. You stop being the target. You become the observer, and the observer is the most dangerous person in the room. Because the moment you stop experiencing shame as a judgment of your worth and start seeing it as a symptom of their weakness, the power dynamic flips. The spotlight turns. The script glitches. You are no longer inside the play. You are watching it. And the moment you step outside the frame, the person attacking you is left alone on stage, exposed, waiting for applause that never comes. That is the opening fracture. That is the first crack in their dominance. And from here on, every move becomes surgical. Once you understand that shame is a performance and not a verdict, the game changes. But insight alone isn't enough. In the moment of attack, knowledge evaporates unless it's anchored to a physical response. This is where most people fail. They know better, but their body betrays them. So we begin with the void. Silence is not absence. Silence is pressure. When an insult lands, a vacuum forms in the room, a social gap. Human beings are wired to fill that gap immediately. We laugh to soften it. We explain to close it. We retaliate to reclaim dignity. That gap feels dangerous because uncertainty feels like death to the social brain. But for the strategist, the gap is not a threat. It is a weapon. The most destabilizing thing you can do when someone tries to shame you is nothing. Not the nothing of fear. Not the nothing of confusion. But the nothing of a predator deciding whether the prey is even worth noticing. Here is the discipline. They insult you. You do not blink. You do not look away. You do not smile. You do not frown. You become still. Your face goes neutral. Your body relaxed. Your gaze steady but empty. Not aggressive. Aggression admits impact. You look at them the way a surgeon looks at a chart. Detached. Clinical. Bored. Then you count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Those 3 seconds feel eternal. Not for you, but for everyone else. The audience was expecting motion, sound, reaction. When none comes, their attention snaps back to the attacker. The energy they threw hits nothing and drops at their own feet. And now, something fascinating happens. The attacker starts to doubt themselves. Did he hear me? Did I go too far? Why isn't she reacting? Is this not landing? Silence stretches. It thickens. It becomes uncomfortable. But here's the key. It's no longer your discomfort. You refused to carry it, so it belongs to them. By doing nothing, you force the room to sit inside the ugliness of what they just did. You amplify their behavior without saying a word. You turn their disrespect into a spotlight. This is the void. You become a black hole. Their energy enters and never returns. Often they panic. They try to repair the frame. I'm just joking. Relax. Cat got your tongue? These are not jokes. They are admissions. They are the death rattle of someone losing control of the interaction. Do not rescue them. Silence is not passive. Silence is predatory patience. Once the void has done its work, you speak, but never to defend. Defense is contamination. Defense ties you to the accusation. Kings do not argue their innocence with peasants. Instead, you reframe. You don't treat their words as facts. You treat them as behavior. This is psychological judo. They say, "Wow, you really messed that up." The weak response is explanation. The average response is denial. The Machiavellian response is curiosity. You tilt your head slightly, just enough to signal analysis, and you say calmly, "Are you okay?" Or, "That was a strange thing to say out loud." Or simply, "You seem very emotional about this." Notice the shift. We are no longer talking about you. We are talking about them. You've moved the microscope. You've framed yourself as the stable adult and them as the reactive child. And now they are defending. And remember the law. The one defending is losing. This is frame inversion. There is an even colder variation. Sometimes the shamer is technically right. Maybe you did fail. Maybe you do have a flaw. They expect shame. So you deny them the pleasure. You agree, but you do it with indifference. You're arrogant. You smile faintly. I know. You have no idea what you're doing. You shrug. That's never stopped me. This is agree and amplify. You absorb the bullet and make it disappear inside you. When there is no shame, the weapon has no edge. Shame only works on what you are hiding. When you own your flaws without apology, you become untouchable. The mud slides off you and stains the hands of the person throwing it. Now understand the deeper layer. Shame is never about you and the attacker alone. It is a performance for an audience. The real target is the crowd. The attacker wants laughter, alignment, witnesses. Most people try to win over the attacker. This is a mistake. You don't convert enemies. You isolate them. Calmness is magnetic. When you remain composed under attack, the crowd instinctively shifts toward you. Not because they are moral, but because they respect stability. They follow control. This is where nonverbal dominance enters. They insult you. You don't look at them right away. You glance at someone else in the group. Just briefly. A subtle smirk. A raised eyebrow. A silent message. Can you believe this? That glance bonds you with the audience and exiles the attacker. You've made them the outsider, the jester, the one trying too hard. Trying too hard is the ultimate social sin. Your movement slow, your voice deepens, your breathing steadies. You become the rock, they become the wind, and the wind always exhausts itself. By now, something fundamental has shifted. You are no longer reacting, you are orchestrating. But there are times when silence and inversion aren't enough. There are people who thrive on any reaction, even defeat. For them, there is one final move, and it is absolute. There are people who feed on reaction the way parasites feed on blood. They don't want to win the exchange. They want to feel you, your irritation, your tension, your attention. Even your contempt gives them life. For these people, psychological judo becomes entertainment. Silence becomes a challenge. They escalate because escalation is the only way they know how to exist. This is where you stop playing the game entirely. This is the nuclear option. You erase them, not dramatically, not angrily, but with such total indifference that it destabilizes them at a primal level. You don't punish them with words. You punish them with non-existence. They speak and you continue what you are doing as if a breeze passed through the room. You don't look at them. You don't pause. You don't acknowledge the sound. If they're standing in front of you, you look through them, past their head, at nothing in particular. This is not the silent treatment. The silent treatment is emotional. It says, "I am hurt, so I withdraw." This is something else entirely. This says, You are not important enough to register. Biologically, this is devastating. Being attacked confirms existence. Being ignored denies it. And denial of existence triggers panic older than language. It tells the nervous system, you are nothing to this person. They will escalate. Louder voice, sharper insults, more theatrical behavior. Let them. Every escalation while you remain untouched makes them look unstable, desperate, small. They burn themselves alive in public while you sip coffee and talk about the weather. This is dominance without effort. The mountain does not argue with the ant. But here is the hidden requirement. You can't fake this. To delete someone from reality, you must genuinely believe their opinion has zero value, not low value. Zero. As irrelevant as static noise. That belief is not social, it is internal, which brings us to the real core of this entire strategy. None of these techniques work if your inner structure is fragile. You can memorize pauses, practice stares, learn lines, but micro-expressions never lie. If you are trembling inside, the room will feel it. Predators sense instability the way sharks sense blood. To truly destroy anyone who tries to shame you, you must destroy the part of you that feels shame. Why does shame hurt? Because somewhere, consciously or not, you handed them the authority to audit your worth. You let an outsider, someone who doesn't know your history, your struggles, your potential, grade your value. Why? Why do you trust their judgment more than your own? This is where Machiavellian philosophy turns inward. Machiavelli didn't speak of virtue as moral purity. He spoke of virtu, prowess, strength, capability. A man of virtu is internally anchored. He knows what he is. If you know you are strong and someone calls you weak, it doesn't hurt. It's absurd, like calling a lion a mouse. The lion doesn't get offended. He doesn't explain. He doesn't roar. He knows. That is the state you are building. It requires ruthless self-honesty. You must face the things you are ashamed of instead of hiding them. Your past, your failures, your insecurities, your unfinished ambitions. Bring them into the light privately. Look at them. Yes, I failed. Yes, I struggle. Yes, I am not there yet. The moment you accept your own flaws, shame loses its ammunition. People can only hurt you with the truths you are hiding from yourself. If you hide nothing, they have nothing. You become transparent inwardly and opaque outwardly. This is the paradox of power. The most vulnerable man is the one hiding behind armor. The most powerful man stands naked in the storm and says, I have nothing to defend. When you reach this point, your orientation to the world flips. You stop entering rooms hoping to be liked. You start entering rooms evaluating. Do I respect these people? Do I value this environment? You become the judge. And when you carry yourself this way, something subtle but irreversible happens. People feel it before they understand it. Your silence gains weight. Your presence slows conversations. Your reactions or lack of them set the temperature. At this stage, you rarely need to strike back. But sometimes, precision is required. When you do speak, you cut like a surgeon. Never long speeches, never explanations. One sentence, clean, controlled. Who are you trying to impress right now? This exposes the performance. Say that again. This drains the rhythm and forces retreat. I know things are hard for you. This reframes them as unstable and you as above. Each line is a scalpel, one incision, organ removed, no mess. And when it's done, you leave. You withdraw attention, you move on. Power is access, and you just revoked it. The greatest insult is not anger. It is forgettability. You don't look back. You don't seek validation. You don't linger. You delete the interaction from your mind as if it never mattered. And that, more than anything you could say, is what stays with them. Because from that moment on, they know something they can't unlearn. They can try to shame you. They can try to provoke you. But they cannot touch you. And once a predator realizes their teeth don't work, they stop biting. Not because you fought them, but because you were never prey to begin with. After the silence, after the stare, after the erasure, something lingers in the air. This is the aftermath, and it matters more than the confrontation itself. Most people sabotage their own dominance here. They look back to see if the attacker noticed. They search faces for approval. They wait for confirmation that they won. That single glance gives everything away. Power is not proven in the clash. It is proven in how quickly you move on. Machiavellian dominance is about withdrawal of attention. Attention is the most valuable currency in any social system. Whoever controls it controls the hierarchy. When you remove it cleanly, without bitterness, without ceremony, you collapse the other person's relevance. So once you've held the frame, leave. Physically, if possible. Mentally, always. Turn to someone else. Change the topic. Resume your work. Let the moment die without CPR. That death is intentional. You are teaching the room something without lecturing. This interaction did not qualify for my energy, and the room learns fast. Now, let's address a misconception. These techniques are not about becoming cruel. They are about becoming ungovernable. There is a difference. Cruelty is reactive. Control is deliberate. Cruel people still need witnesses. Controlled people don't. Which brings us to the wider context. We live in an era of constant judgment. Digital coliseums. Social shaming as entertainment. Public pylons masquerading as morality. If you cannot withstand shame, you will shrink. You will self-censor. You will become a ghost who apologizes for existing. That is not virtue. That is captivity. Learning these tactics is not about becoming darker. It is about building a perimeter around your mind so that other people's insecurities don't spill into your nervous system. When you know you can handle shame, fear dissolves. You speak more freely. You take risks. You stop asking permission. Shame is a cage. These techniques are the keys. But here is the warning one Machiavelli himself would insist on. Do not become the shamer. Do not use these tools to humiliate the weak. That is cowardice disguised as power. These methods are defensive by nature. They are meant to neutralize attacks, not manufacture them. Use them against those who seek to dominate, not those who are already fragile. Be the monster that keeps other monsters in check. That is the ethical line. Now we arrive at something deeper than technique. Philosophy. Why does shame work at all? Because most people outsource their self-worth. They let the crowd decide who they are. Likes, approval, laughter, rejection, these become the mirror they use to recognize themselves. That is the real vulnerability. Machiavelli spoke of virtù because he understood this. A man who relies on himself is psychologically sovereign. He does not need consensus to exist. He does not need permission to stand. When your identity is internally authored, external commentary becomes background noise. This is why the final phase is not social. It is internal. You must dismantle the belief that being judged equals being diminished. Judgment is constant. It is unavoidable. But only one thing gives it power: your agreement. When you stop agreeing, shame loses gravity. At that point, even insults feel informative rather than painful. You hear them and think, interesting. That's what they reveal under pressure. You stop hearing attacks. You start collecting data. Who seeks attention? Who collapses under silence? Who projects when threatened? You are no longer emotionally engaged. You are mapping. And once you operate from that level, your posture changes permanently. You move slower. You speak less. You interrupt no one. Your presence becomes dense. People don't know why they feel different around you. They just know they choose their words more carefully. They sense consequences without seeing threats. That is the mark of real dominance. But sometimes, rarely, you will encounter someone who does not retreat. Someone who continues to push, not out of insecurity, but out of ambition. In those moments, silence alone is insufficient. This is when you counterattack. Not emotionally, not repeatedly, once. And only once. The rule is brevity. The longer you speak, the more you expose. One sentence precisely placed ends the game. Who are you performing for? This breaks the fourth wall. Repeat that. This drains the power. I hope things improve for you. This reframes the entire dynamic. Each line forces them into defense. And the moment they defend, they lose altitude. Then you disengage. You don't debate. You don't follow up. You don't explain. You withdraw. Because power is not about crushing others. It's about making yourself unreachable. By now, you should see the pattern. Silence. Reframe. Withdrawal. This is not randomness. It is architecture. You are building a reputation, not through noise, but through consistency. People learn quickly who cannot be shamed, and once they learn that, something remarkable happens. They stop trying, not because you're aggressive, not because you're intimidating, but because attacking you yields nothing. No reaction, no validation, no control. You are not prey, and predators don't waste energy on targets that don't bleed. One final piece remains, the one that turns defense into transformation. And it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with who you become after the silence settles. When the silence settles and the room moves on, something remains. Not outside of you, but inside. This is where most people misunderstand power. They think the goal was to defeat the attacker, to humiliate them, to walk away victorious. That's the shallow interpretation. That's still ego playing games. The real victory happens after, because every time someone tries to shame you and fails, you are given a choice. You can return to your old self, reactive, vigilant, scanning the world for threats, or you can let the experience carve something permanent into you. A different center of gravity. Shame only has power over the version of you that is unfinished, uncertain, still asking the world for confirmation. When that version dies, shame loses its function. It becomes noise without meaning. This is the final phase, internal sovereignty. You stop measuring yourself through social feedback. You stop editing your behavior to avoid judgment. You stop anticipating how things will look. Instead, you begin to operate from a fixed internal axis. Ask yourself this honestly. How much of your life has been shaped by the fear of being seen the wrong way? The clothes you didn't wear, the words you swallowed, the decisions you postponed, the ambitions you softened. Shame didn't just silence you in moments. It trained you over years. That's why the real work is not social. It's psychological. You must revoke the authority you've given other people over your self-image. Machiavelli understood this at a level most never reach. He knew that the man who depends on reputation is enslaved by it. The man who depends on approval is governable. But the man who is internally anchored, who knows his strengths, accepts his flaws, and owns his direction, cannot be moved by public opinion. This is what it means to build the internal fortress. An internal fortress is not confidence theater. It is not affirmations. It is not pretending you don't care. It is clarity. You know who you are becoming. You know what you value. You know what you are willing to lose. When those three are solid, shame has nowhere to land. Because shame requires uncertainty. It feeds on the question, what if they're right? When that question disappears, so does the pain. This doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you precise. You stop over-explaining because you no longer need to be understood by everyone. You stop reacting because you no longer feel threatened by misunderstanding. You stop performing because you no longer seek permission. Your presence changes. People feel it immediately. Not because you dominate them, but because you don't adjust for them. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't scramble to repair tension. You don't rush to clarify. You let things be unresolved. And unresolved space makes people reveal themselves. This is where the hunter becomes the terrain. When someone tries to shame you now, it doesn't feel personal. It feels diagnostic. You observe tone, timing, motive. You see whether they are insecure, ambitious, bored, or threatened. Their behavior becomes information, not injury. You are no longer inside the moment. You are above it. And this elevation unlocks something dangerous. Choice. You can ignore. You can reframe. You can cut. Or you can walk away. Not out of fear, but out of selectivity. That selectivity is the real signal of power. Here is the final paradox Machiavelli would leave you with. The goal was never to destroy the person who shames you. The goal was to destroy the part of you that needed their approval. Once that part is gone, no one can lower your status without your consent. You move differently now. You no longer enter rooms hoping to be safe. You enter rooms expecting to evaluate. You don't scan faces for approval. You scan behavior for alignment. You don't fear judgment. You anticipate exposure of others. And because of that, your posture changes. Your pace slows. Your words thin out. Your attention becomes scarce. Scarcity is power, not because it manipulates, but because it forces others to self-regulate around you. They choose words more carefully. They hesitate before testing you. They feel the weight of consequence without seeing threat. This is what it means to be untouchable, not aggressive, not loud, not dominant in appearance, but internally unmovable. At this point, shame becomes inverted. Instead of shrinking you, it exposes them. Instead of silencing you, it clarifies you. Instead of weakening you, it sharpens your edge. You almost welcome it, not because you enjoy conflict, but because it confirms something you already know. You are no longer prey. You are the trap, and the trap doesn't chase. It doesn't announce itself. It waits. Most people will watch this and return to their old patterns. They'll nod, feel empowered for a moment, then apologize tomorrow. They are addicted to relief, not transformation. But if you are still here listening to the quiet between these words, then something is already shifting. You're not looking for techniques anymore. You're building a way of being. This was not about winning arguments. It was about reclaiming authorship over your identity. And once you do that, shame has no audience. The next time you feel that familiar heat rise in your body, don't panic. Smile, because you'll recognize it for what it is, an invitation. An invitation to stand still, to say nothing, to watch someone else reveal themselves. And when they realize they're locked in with you, not the other way around, it will be too late. You won't need revenge. You won't need validation. You'll already be gone. And what remains will be silence. Not empty silence, but the kind that wakes people up.